Yo, this is Massim Fareed. Let's talk about investing, business, geopolitics, current events. There's a lot to unfold today, so let's get it. Vlog 1. It's Monday, March 2nd, 2026. With the US and Israel starting a war against Iran, we didn't see a crash. We didn't even see a major dip. I would have been surprised 3 years ago, but I believe the last 2 years, since the focus has been so intense on Fed and high interest rates, combined with consistent passive investing, with the lack of money power to be able to invest in housing, the concentration in ETFs, the buy to dip mentality by retail investors, and finally, even though we are seeing a rotation in the market, AI growth perspective has created this new trend where global macro conditions don't hold as much weight. Bonds, futures, and commodities definitely feel the macro shifts, but people also aren't into 60-40 equities bond type of style investing anymore. The VIX jumps up, but people are banking on the fundamentals. This is definitely another reason to get away from the dollar globally and into precious metals, but it remains sideways today. If the war drags on, then there will be an oil shock, natural gas shock, and other fossil fuel products being affected. But with U.S. oil production historically at its peak, it won't be as bad as it has been in the past, dealing with the Middle East. Even with that, the timeline is still important. With the Strait of Hormuz being cut off by the Iranis, 20% of the world's oil supply won't make it to its destination, and insurance companies will revoke their policies on tankers with war clauses, which businesses can't take a risk on at all. Also, other attacks on neighboring oil facilities will create more challenges that will definitely be overbearing for the market. Another byproduct issue will be on the tourism market, mostly in Middle East, Asia. Right now, the Russell, the Nasdaq, and the S&P, the Dow, and crypto all popped up. Nothing major, but it speaks on the market stability and confidence in the expected growth. Also, when geopolitical risk rises, then the Fed tends to get slightly dovish, basically to counter the effect and end up injecting liquidity into the market, which helps. Most sectors are holding up sideways. Only industrials and the defense stocks are doing the work and rising. But it is dependent on how long this war will last. And Trump's sporadic behavior, the volatility is crazy. I'm still concerned about the job market, housing market growth, interest rates management, poor data reports, tariffs, and debt crisis overall. But the market's reaction shows it is expecting this not to be a long-lasting war, or at least it won't be tremendously disruptive in the short term. As far as the war goes, I mean, I feel like I should talk, a little bit about the history and the situation. Um, Once again, as far as investing goes, that's all good, but we're humans. Human life matters. These tragedies matter. It's just not. We shouldn't be fighting wars left and right. Trump's already bombed 8 countries. Attacked 8 countries. We're just in Venezuela. But as far as Iran goes, there's two sides to every picture. What you see on the media, you'll see a lot of people wanting to invade and overthrowing the ayatollahs. But obviously, we're in the West, so we're gonna get coverage from the Western media that showcases that side. We're not gonna see the other side, people that support the ayatollahs, that believe in their message. But as far as the people who support U.S. intervention, most of their claims or what they say is, when people try to protest there, they get killed. People are forced to be silenced. Women's rights are terrible. Their freedoms are controlled. Basically, and then like the current rulers don't represent Persian history. You can, say all these things are slightly valid, but what country doesn't do, some form of those things? I mean, that shouldn't exist. Once again, I believe, in complete truth, honesty, and justice. So yeah, I agree. Those things shouldn't exist. But those aren't reasons to start a war and overthrow entire regimes. There's negotiations, there's systems that can be in place. My personal belief, even though, full honesty, I'm a Shia Muslim, which majority of the population in Iran is Shia Muslim, even though we're a minority group within the greater, diaspora of Muslims. We're only 10 to 15% of the population. Majority are Sunni. Then there's other, subsects like Wahhabi and other groups. But essentially, Iran is majority Shia. I'm Shia. But even with that, what I believe the Ayatollah should have done was, allow a liberal party to be formed, so that way people can elect liberal people to, basically their Senate, their House, or Congress. No, I'm saying in English terms, they do have an elected president. But the supreme leader sits on top, and then he has his own advisors. Then he has the main military. Then he has the Quds Force, which is special forces. So there's a chain of command and chain of power there. But there are elections that happen. But I feel like, if you would have just came out outright, and they still can do this, I believe there should be multiple political parties. You shouldn't have to focus on one party or have a great split dividing between two. You can have 6, 8, whatever that needs to be there to represent all the people. Bring as much as human rights as possible. So yeah, if I was a leader, I would have executed a clause, made it public globally that, hey, we're promoting a liberal party to be formed, so they can bring in bills that they feel like are liberal, that can open up the country, and now we're willing to work with the West beyond just a nuclear deal. We're changing the face of Iran. That's how I would have approached it. But you have to do comparative analysis and speak facts from both sides. That's what I always say. Now, majority of the population in Iran supports the Ayatollahs. Just like any other country, they have major metropolises and vast rural regions. Majority of the metropolises, they get all the coverage. People will film there, shoot there. That's just how it always is. Like, even in the United States, if people are going to look at global news over here, are they going to look at Indiana, or are they going to look at New York? It's just common sense. But the major metropolises get more coverage, but majority of the liberals live there. But there are still, a heavy amount of conservative population that stays there. Now, the rural regions, it's not like that. It's heavily populated by the conservative population and very limited on the liberals. There is still some there, but if you look at, more of the holy cities there, they're all for the Ayatollah. That's who they back. Now, the overall demographic in Iran is young, so they're borderline, which means they're emotionally tied by their elders' culture, faith, lifestyle, recent history, and experiences. But they are the ones who truly are paying the economical price. As far as the nation's history goes, we're going to speak on that too. But because of what the past generations did or did not do, Western countries have sanctions on them. So it's really hard to do business, even though Iranians are highly educated. Education is open to both male and female. Nobody's held back to go all the way to secondary education. It's actually extremely promoted there. So it's not like, you're dealing with a population that's ignorant and has low level of education. So, as far as active war goes with the West, which is, factually illegal based on international law, this war is illegal. It is obvious that there's political espionage, manipulations by outsiders. There's only, promote support for leadership who deny the manipulation and are ready to fight them. So the younger crowd with this type of scenario, this type of situation, is more prone to now back the Ayatollahs or, and back the conservative side, because they're saying, we were in the middle of negotiations and you just attacked us, basically a secret attack, bombed a school, killed a bunch of young girls. Yeah, so who are you going to go with? You're definitely not going to, want to openly surrender. Now, as far as Iran and the West history goes, basically, Iran had a democratically elected prime minister. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh. The West, specifically U.S. and Britain, overthrew him because he wanted to nationalize the oil industry. The CIA began their coup and overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh and implemented the Shah as a dictator. They wanted a puppet leader so badly, they even gave him enriched uranium and scientific knowledge for tactical use on it. So, this whole mess is based on nuclear weapons, but originally when they put in their puppet leader, they handed him uranium too. That's insane to think about. The Shah followed an authoritarian rule with an iron fist and wreaked havoc, especially against the conservative Shias. Imprisonments, assassinations, secret police, full-on corruption. And, a lot of the money that he was making, he was splitting with British Petroleum, giving them their cut, and then giving gifts and all these things to foreigners while people were struggling in Iran. It wasn't like he made the life there great for everybody. He picked and choose, just basically what dictators do, what monarchies do. Now in 1979, there was a lot of pressure on him. The Shias were rising, the conservatives were rising, the young people were rising against him. It was a lot of college students that made this really happen. Once again, 1979, after protests and immense pressure, he was forced to leave. He claims he left because he didn't want bloodshed of his people. But when he was in power, that's what he was doing. He was killing his people and living a luxurious life. Now, while this was happening, support for Ayatollah Khomeini grew. He was himself exiled, all over the place. The last place he was in, was Paris. He stayed there for a long period of time. So finally, once the Shah left, Ayatollah Khomeini came in, and he was revered and he was loved, globally. You gotta understand, Shia Muslims all around the world, look up to him. He basically essentially is not only a leader of Iran, he's a scholar. He's somebody who understands the Quran. He's somebody who understands the Ahlul Bayt, which is the Prophet's family. Like, it's not very simple. This is very deep. Even if somebody's not Irani, they have a connection to the Ayatollahs. So the Shah was given permission to enter the U.S. for like medical care, and that's where he was exiled. So the U.S. Wouldn't comply with Iran's request to send him over so he can be trialed, in Iranian court system. And that really made things heated. So at the time, Jimmy Carter didn't oblige. So students, once again, the student protesters took over the U.S. embassy and decided to find evidence of the coup designed by the West. Majority of the Americans escaped, but 52 Americans were captured, who were caught red-handed shredding embassy documents. Like, these students walk in there and they're literally seeing CIA agents and, I don't know, their assistants just shredding documents left and right. So what these students did was they grabbed these documents, bagged them up, and went back somewhere, I don't know, probably a university, and told people to start piecing them together like a puzzle. And they were successful. Soon, they discovered the evidence. They knew everything was true. The CIA literally overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh. They put in the Shah as a puppet leader, and they took these documents and sent them all over the world. Basically, they showed how the Western powers manipulate and overthrow even a democratic government, and they fixate whoever they want. So, fast forward, now Ronald Reagan's taken office. They urged and they supplied Iraq to attack Iran. So after overthrowing their democratic elected, prime minister, put a puppet leader in, new president comes into power in the U.S. and he wants war with Iran outright. And who do they choose? They choose another dictator. They tell Saddam Hussein, do whatever you like. We're going to support you. And this time around, it wasn't just the U.S. and Britain. It was even France and other European nations, providing whatever they could. So he starts war outright, and what was really promised to him was the western region of Iran, which consists of majority of Iran's oil fields. And there's a lot of Arabs in that region too. So, Saddam Hussein, this guy had a God complex. So he believed, Arabs are just better than people. So if Iran has these oil fields and its majority, the descendants of Arabs, they're not Persians, then, he feels like it's his. And with the U.S. backing him, he felt like Superman. So it was later uncovered that U.S. was selling weapons to Iraq and selling parts for weapons to Iran, and both with highly inflated prices. So they were playing this double agent role, backing Saddam Hussein while at the same time providing parts that Iran needed badly, because when the Shah was there, he was making purchases of weapons from the U.S. and the West. So they had an arsenal which needed parts, because you can't just have, weaponry and things like that just sitting there and, rusting away. So it's insane. You can look up all these documents, and it's factual knowledge that U.S. was supporting them both with what they needed. And obviously they were getting paid. I mean, these prices were inflated. They were paying a lot for all this stuff. So even with complete Western support for Iraq, Iran won the war. In 1988, tensions increased again when the U.S. Navy shot down a commercial plane with 219 civilians on board. Instead of giving Iran some leniency, U.S. heightened sanctions all the way to Bush Jr. presidency. Way later down the road, they did end up paying like these families, some money, but at that time they didn't give no break. Like sanctions remain and kept increasing over time. Now fast forward, we're in the 2000s. Obama comes into power. He chooses a new discourse and starts negotiations between the two nations. And Iran's nuclear program was the main topic of discussion at this point. Once again, Israel, Netanyahu for the last 30 years has been saying tomorrow Iran will have nuclear weapons. In a couple of weeks, they'll have nuclear weapons. Like anytime he comes to the U.S. to speak, he always starts off with, Iran, this, that, they're going to have nuclear weapons, they're going to destroy the world. What's insane is Israel is the only country that has nuclear weapons and doesn't go through the international committees to get approval and let them know the details of how many warheads they have and what they consist of. So, it's just straight up blatant lies on them being afraid of Iran getting nuclear weapons when they're the only country in the Middle East that has a heavy arsenal of nuclear weapons and complete support from the U.S. Billions of dollars get sent from American taxpayers to Israel to do all this. And not to mention what they do to Palestine, it showcases, it's basically evil pointing fingers at another so-called evil, But, after years of negotiations, international oversight, both countries reached a deal. Obama made it happen. They agreed on a deal, that essentially Iran can have nuclear enrichment as long as it's for energy, which is completely fair. Iran is still not like, it's going to say, hey, we're going to build all these massive weapons. You got to let us do it. They agreed on energy simply to remove sanctions so they can prosper. And Ayatollahs were in power. So you can't say the Ayatollahs haven't been communicating and willing to work for the youth of Iran, willing to work for the liberals. Yeah, they have some conservative laws enlisted there. But a lot of countries do, Saudi Arabia, whether it's UAE, all these countries at some point had it and decided to change simply because economics, which everything in the world comes down to economics. That's why I started off this vlog with talking about the stock market. Because as long as the money's moving, money's flowing, a lot of things are eased off. When money supply is not there, that's when the protests start. When the protests start, that's when violence starts. It's all tied together. But even though Obama made it happen, soon as Trump was elected, one of the first things he did was he ripped off the deal between the two countries with pressure from Israel. Who knows what Israel has on him? Obviously, we know about the Epstein files now hanging over his head. So even when he came in power to begin with, in his first, presidency, we all know Israel has been saying this forever, and Trump has direct ties to Israel. His son-in-law is Jared Kushner, who's Jewish Zionist. His family's known for that. But at the end of the day, Trump came in, revoked the nuclear deal. Then he bombed Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Iranian Quds forces, who was respected all over the region, from Yemen to Syria to Iraq. Like, this guy was, he was looked at as a hero, from little children to grown men, looked at him as a warrior. He came, bombed him, killed him. Even after then, Iran didn't go crazy. They did a few attacks here and there. And, when that happened, Trump probably got confident. He's like, I can do whatever I want. They're not going to start a war. They're not going to attack Saudi oil fields regularly. They're not going to attack, the vistas of UAE. They're not going to attack Israel outright. And, so once again, Trump gets his ego boost. Now, as far as what's happening currently, I just gave you the history, so it all ties together. Now, U.S. and Israel are doing this war, but everybody knows it's illegal. So not only is it illegal, they did a surprise attack in the middle of international negotiations. Like, there's no logic to this, Like, if somebody's talking to you, trying to make a deal, why would you do a surprise attack? Senator Bernie Sanders, who ran for U.S. elections for presidency, didn't get through because of the DNC, basically blackballing him. He came out and said, Trump said we had to attack Iran because we can't allow it to have a nuclear weapon. Really? This is the same president who in June said Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated. Vietnam, Iraq, Iran, another lie, another war. The Trump Netanyahu war is unconstitutional and violates international law. It endangers the lives of U.S. troops and people across the region. We lived through the lives of Vietnam and Iraq. No more endless wars. Congress must pass war powers resolutions immediately. Bernie Sanders, telling the truth how it is. He's been around the longest, senator in Vermont's history who isn't affiliated with either party. He's independent. So, and then we have major conservative influence like Tucker Carlson, who are completely against this war and meddling of international politics anywhere. We have too many issues within the United States, whether it's influencers, whether it's, anybody who has a platform has said they don't want to go to war with Iran. They didn't even want to go to war with Venezuela. Anybody. Basically, mind our own business, fix the problems here, and we can go on forward. Now, once again, we have to bring in the Iranian people because this is their country. Basically, the National Iranian American Council, which is the NIAC, did a poll in 2025. And there's a bunch of polls done in it, but these are the most important and relevant, I feel like, to this. The majority of Iranian Americans oppose U.S. military action against Iran, 53% to 36%, with the plurality of 37% saying they strongly oppose U.S. attacks on Iran. Among both Iranian Americans and the general population, diplomacy is ranked as likely to be the most successful in addressing a range of concerns with the Iranian government, including on Iran's nuclear program, human rights, and regional security, in contrast to both war and military actions and sanctions. A strong majority of Iranian Americans oppose the travel ban, 67% to 24%, which President Trump imposed June 5th, 2025, basically halting issuance of visas to Iranians. The polling indicates that President Trump and his policies toward Iran and Iranians have received little support among the Iranian American community. This is apparent in recent elections where Kamala Harris received an estimated 46% of Iranian American vote. In contrast, Donald Trump received an estimated 34% of the Iranian American vote. In the 2020 election, the contrast was more stark. Joe Biden received an estimated 54% of Iranian American vote, in contrast to just 27% from Donald Trump. It is also evident in views toward Trump's decisions to exit the JCPOA, opposed by a margin of 47% to 36%. Most Iranian Americans oppose Israel's military actions in Gaza, 60% to 32%. A plurality of 44% strongly oppose Israel's military action in Gaza. By contrast, the general population appears largely split in this poll. Now, when the media shows you, they're always showing all these Iranians, mostly in California and the metropolises, walking around with the Israeli flag, walking around with the old Iranian flag and the American flag. This diaspora is very Shah driven. They love the Shah, they have a lot of them are Jewish, a lot of them are atheists. So outright they're going to be against the Ayatollahs when their faith is opposing them in all formats. They don't really care about the general population of the Iranis. They want the wealth, they want the old time glory, which is idiotic. Like, to believe a monarchy it has this glorious past to it. No, monarchies are abusive. It's a format of dictatorship. They've never outshined a democracy in any format. So wanting the Shah in place it doesn't make any sense. So anybody supporting Shah, sorry, nobody's gonna back you. Nobody in Iran wants to back you. Nobody outside of Iran wants to back you. You're a very small population of people that believe in this like glorious monarchy. Just it's like a childhood fantasy type thing. When you're younger, you look at a sports dynasty, or you look at the glory of like traditional family to family leadership. Once you get educated, you understand those things are whack. Like, in all formats, that's not how you want to run a society. You want democracies. You want all people to feel comfortable. You want all people to feel like they belong. So the West is making a huge mistake. And their mistakes are historical mistakes that they've always made when they try to overthrow governments, whether it was in Iraq or other regions like Vietnam, anywhere. They haven't really won a war. They couldn't even beat Afghanistan. They couldn't beat the Taliban. They call these people like cave people, uneducated people. They couldn't even defeat them. U.S. had to leave because they don't really understand the culture. They don't really understand the faith, and they instill people in power who feel like they're the greatest people alive. Yeah, America is great. I love being from here. I love the rights we have. And I do believe the future is going to come from America, people that are educated. We can still lead the world. I have no, quarrel against anybody as far as like whether it's China or anybody. If everybody wants to prosper together, let them prosper. I believe in globalism. I don't believe in, being a patriot who just will die for your country without due cause, blatantly just fighting. Like, basically grow up, think about the whole world. So yeah, let me come back to basically what the mistakes the West made. Basically, the Ayatollahs are just not Iranian Islamic leadership concept. They are a major representation and protector of Shia Muslims around the world. This was proven by the global outcry and attacks at U.S. consulates, embassies from Asia to Africa. Trump asking the IRGC to surrender shows he has zero understanding of Shia Islam. The faith stands on the shoulders of truth, justice, and sacrifice. So now we kind of have to go into theology for me to explain how the people who believe in the Ayatollahs, why and how they are the way they are, and how they're not going to surrender. So theology, which to the West is confusing since it's all about capitalism here. Essentially, money runs everything here. So to have something that you believe in that's greater than just money and your wealth and your house and your properties, it's kind of tough, that people like this still exist in the world. But for Shia Muslims, it's all about following the path of Ahlul Bayt. This is the Prophet Muhammad's family and the true successors of Islam. There's a lot to unfold when it comes to this topic, but we will jump into the third Imam of Shia Muslims, Imam Hussein. He was the second eldest grandson of Prophet Muhammad, son of Prophet Muhammad's general, his true successor, and the only rightly guided caliph of Islam chosen by God, Imam Ali ibn Abu Talib, and son of Bibi Fatma, the only daughter from his first wife, Bibi Khadija, the lady who funded and supported Islam. Without her, Islam would have died right away because she spent all her wealth protecting the Muslims against their opposition. Now, his story, Imam Hussein's story, is about standing up to the wealthy and corrupt Yazid, who was son of Muawiyah, basically corrupt fraction, northern of Saudi Arabia region, controlling like Iraq and Syria. So basically, Yazid stole Imam Hussein's right to be the next caliph of the Muslims through bribery, political espionage, assassinations, double agent tactics. To make the long story short, Imam Hussein ended up in Karbala with his family as an immigrant. He didn't leave as a warrior or somebody who had a battalion arsenal ready to fight. He left with his family, women and children included, and they were all massacred by a large army sent by Yazid. And his remaining family was imprisoned and paraded around. I mean, to think about it, Prophet Muhammad's family was imprisoned and paraded around just a few generations down. It's insane. We believe Prophet Muhammad is the final messenger of God, going all the way to the lineage of all the prophets. Prophet Abraham, Prophet Noah, Prophet Adam, Eve. We believe in all that. We believe in Prophet Jesus. Muslims are also waiting on Prophet Jesus to come back on, for Judgment Day. The final prophet to come back when that horn rings and the world ends is Prophet Jesus. Muslims believe he will be back. Muslims believe he's in full flesh in heaven. So yeah, I mean, our theology is strong and we believe in it and we're ready to die for it. And Muslims aren't, we don't fear death, especially Shias. We come from warrior blood. Imam Ali was the general of Prophet Muhammad's army, who's his protector. Whenever Prophet Muhammad called him, he came. He raised him. He's the one who brought him up. But this message is never to bow down to those who lie, cheat, steal, and just engage in overall corruption. So you think the IRGC, the Ayatollahs, are going to give it up that easily? The Shias are going to let Iran get destroyed? I mean, you have to study this stuff, before you make these decisions. What makes the story even more relevant to what is happening now is Imam Hussein's older brother, Imam Hassan, the second Imam, had negotiated and signed a treaty with Yazid's father Muawiyah that after he passed away, the Caliphate would go to Imam Hussein, but he lied and passed it on to his son Yazid. Similar to how Trump immediately broke the deal that Iran made with Obama to reduce sanctions and allow a nuclear program for Iran. So it's funny, the relationship between signing contracts and being publicly broken existed throughout history and time. That's a quick synopsis on Shia Islam theology. If you would like to learn more, you can click on the link below and purchase my book. It's Muslim in Middle America, Ready for a Debate. You can find it on Amazon. I published it. It's a socio-political analysis, and it'll give you a lot of information from somebody who grew up in Asia, Middle East, and North America. And I studied, public and environmental affairs in college. I also have a business degree, so I have a wide perspective on all this. And check the book out. The link should be below. But back to what's happening currently. This war started on the basis of Iran holding nuclear weapons. The truth is, and everyone knows this from international nuclear committees to other great world powers, Iran has no nuclear weapons or any weapons of mass destruction. Trump and his cabinet made this decision because they do whatever Israel tells them to do. Their economic policies are failing, especially tariffs. They're hurting America like crazy. From Midwest to big, metropolises like New York, everybody's getting hurt by tariffs. All reports are showing 90% of tariffs are being put on the U.S. citizens. And, for me, somebody who has businesses, I can vouch to this. Whenever we get imported product, we have to sign and pay up front for tariffs, which we didn't have to do before. My business has been hit with their tariffs ranging from 15% to 30%. So that's factually correct. And small businesses are the first one to get hurt. We get the bulk of the pain no matter what happens. These rich people, they have access to capital. They can hoard supplies. They can have large warehouses and build their inventories. So, Americans need a distraction from the Epstein files too. So not only are tariffs bad, these Epstein files were blowing up the U.S. It was a daily topic in any format. And now Israel is telling you to attack Iran, and Epstein was a Zionist Jew tied to Mossad. He was here, basically had all this dirt on all these leaders, billionaires, wealthy people around the world. Now, you're going to want a distraction before the midterms come, because all the pollings are showing that the Republicans are not going to do well in the midterms. And if they were to lose the House majority, then there was no way they could have started this war without immense opposition. They might have been able to get somewhere close to it, but if the House wasn't led by them, it would have been extremely tough to start this war. But they made it happen, and now let's see what happens. It's terrible that people are dying, and we're all living in a vulnerable position. Being in the U.S., you start feeling guilty. You're like, man, our life is so good. We have all these freedoms. And you look other places like Palestine, Sudan, Iran, Yemen. There's so many places you can name. Venezuela. It's just so much pain, and it's so unnecessary. There's so much wealth. It can all go around. That's a fact. Our technology is so advanced. We have enough technology to make food for every person in the world. It's just sad. But that's current events. It's a heavy topic, so spend bulk of it on it. I gave you a little bit of history, a little bit of theology, but other than geopolitics, the market has a lot to react to this week. All this happened and we sustained well, but on Wednesday, March 4th, we will get the Beige Book from the Fed, which covers all 12 federal districts with real-time business activity, pricing pressure, and labor conditions. Then Friday, March 6th, we get the February jobs report, which, man, it's not looking good. Me being a business owner, it's been tough, not hiring people, not having to give raises. The job reports are kind of delayed. They've been off, but let's see what happens. And we're still in earnings season. There's a lot of big businesses that still have to report from, cybersecurity companies, from retailers. This week's going to be big. We'll get all that information. And then I'll cover 4 stocks that I'm doing swing trades on. And I'll show you some of the graphs and things like that on that to, give you a little bit more on the markets. So these are the 4 swing trades I'm running right now. First, we have Next Gen Energy. I made this investment based on macro analysis of the need for uranium, and they're basically gonna be mining up in Canada, and they went through this approval with the natives, which cleared amazingly because usually that's really hard to get. It's all about being efficient and eco-friendly, making sure that whatever they're doing isn't going to harm any of their environment. So they already got that approval. So the next level of mining approval is almost guaranteed. There's always hiccups that can come up. Business is business, but so far it's been doing good. I got in basically around like the low 11s right here, and it's carried up pretty well. Got up to 13 and then saw a little bit of volatility, came back down all the way to 12.11, and then just recently it hit my ceiling marker past 13.31, got all the way up to 13.34. So it's looking good. It's promising. We need uranium. They're backed by really good investors. Their management looks really good. Obviously they're not profitable. Obviously there's no great revenue within this specific project, but I think there's tremendous upside. Got in early enough, and if I exit now, I'll get out with a little bit of change. So I'm gonna hold on, see what happens in the next 3 months. Hopefully they get these approvals and we get a nice little jump on this. Then we have CrowdStrike Holdings. The technicals on this look horrible, but fundamentals are amazing. And the reason technicals look horrible, it's all because of the software sell-off, and that's because of OpenClaw coming out and showing the world what agentic AI can do. If you haven't heard, OpenClaw just took a giant leap. Officially, it's a open source system that allows us to create agents. I'm actually using it myself right now. I'm creating agents on it. I have zero coding knowledge. I have had a tech company before, but it's always on the design side of things, whether it's designing apps, websites, UI, UX related stuff. But I don't know any coding languages, and I'm making agents right now to do a lot of stuff for me. It's definitely changed the world within a span of short period of time, but it makes no sense that because people are scared that software isn't going to do well, a cybersecurity company is being taken down this far. At their height, CrowdStrike was trading at 566.90. And then they had the little hiccup with Microsoft, which was tied to airlines and froze up a lot of flights from taking off. That happened, but turned out this situation was related to a lot of other stuff, and they bounced back. Ever since then, I might have gotten in too early. I should have played it a little bit safer, but to me, it's like a 6-month trade anyways. I was willing to hold on to it, especially with earnings report coming out tomorrow. So tomorrow, all day, I'm on it. I'm on CrowdStrike tomorrow. Earnings report, logging into that, balance sheet, P&L, making sure management knows what they're talking about, making sure they are making an AI play. Because if CrowdStrike isn't making an AI play, which they are, they've made some good acquisitions, it just doesn't make sense for this stock to get beat up so far down. Like it says 342.72 lows and then sitting at 384. Like it doesn't make sense. I mean, I think after tomorrow's call, if they show like great revenue, profits, it'll go up fast. And then from there on, it's gonna be like technical analysis, making sure entry point makes sense for me to exit early, or do I need to slice and dice, or do I give it all up once I hit my marker. But Anywhere above 476 for me is a good point. Once again, with swing trading, for those who don't know, you get a longer time horizon. I try to make bigger investments for my swing trades, and I get out when I need to. It's not my long-term retirement account, any of this. These are all trades. So, yeah, I think CrowdStrike will end up being good because it doesn't make sense for cybersecurity because AI needs it. And as AI advances, I feel like cybersecurity is going to get better. There's no lack of it. And CrowdStrike, what's amazing about them is they not only do they do enterprise level business, they do government contracts. They just signed a contract with Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So yeah, man, if they're protecting governments, there's no point for them to be dipping this low simply because now we have access to agentic AI with the open source. I don't see the logic in that. I do see the disruption coming in AI and agentic with AI and agentic AI. Don't get me wrong, but not right now. It's too early. Then we have BMNR, which has taken a beating because once again, it's a crypto-related stock. This is the biggest Ethereum treasury in the world. It's backed by one of the best managements, Tom Lee's from Fundstrat, one of the best analysts there is. He's been right so far as much as any person can be for the last 5 years since COVID. His resume is insane. Going back to the cell phone era, he's one of the guys who believed in the cell phone trade and made a killing when a lot of people were doubting it. Now, the rise and drops of BMNR is crazy. Some of these numbers don't make sense. But I got in around the 40s, which I've been punished because it came down to the lows of 19. The lowest it went down to is 16. But I'm in it for as long as I need to be. Basically, I'm going to play. To me, when I got in, based on MicroStrategy, which is Bitcoin treasury, I knew I would be in this for like a couple of years. And with those couple of years, I think the upside is great. I do have my markers set. Anything between 46 and 52, I can chop some off and keep going. But I think I'm going to hold on as long as I can because Tom Lee's making great investments even with this. They invested in Mr. Beast, who's one of the biggest social media stars in the world. Not even social media, he's just in all media. And he's investing in financial services related technologies. So it's all kind of tied together. And with the marketing he's going to get with the youth, and if they see Bitmine, as a crypto leader with tokenization and with Ethereum being the stake capabilities by itself and the dividends are going to give back, I think this is going to be one of the best companies. I did get in a little bit higher than I like, but I saw the trend, like if you see like this is a position I was looking at, essentially this whole area to me, I thought it was going to keep going up and maybe go sideways for a little bit and then as they invest more and whatnot. But nobody thought this time around we were going to get a crypto winter, but we did. And that cycle is usually 4 years. So it could be in here for a while based on how crypto trades. And nobody still knows this crypto a commodity, is it a currency? So the masses still need to, figure out how they're going to make this play. To me, Ethereum is going to get tokenized. From top to bottom, every business is going to use that shift, and the boom is there. And if they're going to be the biggest treasury holder, their value has to go up. And I did invest in MicroStrategy, got in and out, and I made a good play with that one. I could have held on longer to get to its pinnacle, but I got out at a good time where I felt safe. So I think BMNR can do that, especially with Tom Lee backing him. His whole team is good. He's got great crypto analysts. You got great technical analysts working with him. His ETF granny shots is amazing. I like how they rotate those when they need them. It's already so far beating the S&P 500. So yeah, overall, I believe in the fundamentals, not so much as the technicals or how people believe, there won't be a crypto winter. I don't listen to none of that. That's all noise to me. I think until it's tokenized and the technology is like accessible to everybody, we're really not going to see what crypto can do. So yeah, that's their Palantir. I've been with them since the IPO. I've been trading them in and out. I've gotten a bunch of their stocks even when they were down to like $6 to $8 range. But recently I made a quick play once Trump sent out the naval forces out towards Iran. I got some just to trade in the next 3 to 6 months, just go in and out, do a quick flip. It got affected by the software sell-off too, which doesn't make sense because literally Palantir is the best business AI company in the world. What they do with data is hard to do. They essentially take data and turn it into a digital twin. So you can be a small business, you can be a large enterprise, you can be a Formula One car racing team. As long as you have your data, they can take it and formulate it in a way and showcase it on screen where it enhances everything, whether it's supply chain related stuff. Like everybody should go on YouTube and check out the Formula One Palantir Ferrari video they put out. Showcases how their race car drivers work with Palantir and getting the data across and getting a full representation to basically make their lives easier in race. But Palantir is down. It'll be up. I mean, its peak was pretty legit. They got up to the high 220s, but I think their average around that, like the high was like 180, 190, where they, make, around 180s. I mean, now for me to get in around, 120, 130, that's where I went in. I think there's already upside for me. I'm already, made a little bit at 146, but I'm looking for it to cross that 157 marker, and then I can start selling some off slowly. And if it keeps going up, then might re-enter again. We'll see. But these are my 4 swing trades. I'm in Next Gen Energy, CrowdStrike, BMNR, Palantir, all mostly because of the fundamentals, the balance sheets, the P&Ls, the growth prospects for BMNR and Next Gen Energy. Technicals are okay. The software sell-off hurt a lot of companies, but I think it's premature. So let's see what happens, and please like and subscribe.